Joining me now to discuss the media reforms and the other issues of the day, the Labor MP Stephen Jones and Liberal MP Tony Smith. Thanks so much for your time, gentlemen. First to you, Stephen Jones. The Prime Minister today said that she wasn't prepared to engage in horse trading, but she's open to sensible suggestions. So what possible amendments would the government consider to these media reforms? Well,
the inquiry is just halfway through at the moment, so we have to see what recommendations are going to be put. But I'd like to say a couple of things just at the front. There are two issues that we're attempting to deal with here. In a country with the most concentrated media ownership in the world, we are saying there should be a public interest test if that media ownership seeks to concentrate even more. That is, if there are more takeovers of existing proprietors of other media outlets. Not an unreasonable thing. We have the same sort of tests in a whole heap of other areas. Secondly, if a citizen is aggrieved about something that is written about them in a newspaper, they shouldn't have to put $10,000 on the table and hire a QC to take defamation action. They should have some right to say, I've been wronged here, I want the Press Council to do something about it, I want the Press Council to issue a retraction. Don't think it's too unreasonable that if we're going to have a Press Council that actually listens to complaints and responds to them. That's what we're proposing to do here.
As you just heard there, said he's never seen anything so intrusive on the media's freedoms.
When I have seen some of these media bosses come out and bash some of the stuff that's in this reform, I have never seen such invective. When you have a look at it, it's pretty vanilla stuff that's being proposed here, that we have an independent press council that does what it says it's going to do. We have a public interest test that says if there is further concentration of media in this country, then that be in the public interest, and we don't see a further loss of diverse voices in our media.
Well, look,
Tony Smith.
Stephen, that's a good try, but we have never before seen a minister like Senator Conroy try and ram through changes, not just through the Parliament, through the Cabinet and through your party room, without the Cabinet being properly briefed, with a take-it-or-leave-it approach. And he was very clear about it. He said, here's the package. It's going through. You mentioned this Senate inquiry. You didn't even want the Senate inquiry. This is just window dressing. And to say to every media outlet in the country, that's the way it's going to be. It's my way or the highway. Now, we've seen today your Prime Minister start saying, oh, well, there might be a possibility for change. Now, this just highlights the Prime Minister's complete lack of judgment. The Prime Minister was quite happy to endorse lock, stock and barrel everything Stephen Conroy said and his strategy to ram this through the Cabinet, your party room and the Parliament, all by the end of this week. Now, I suspect that today this is just about a bit of positioning. I don't think it'll amount to much. There might be a bit of embroidery, and I suspect that the independents will do as they've always done. They'll make a lot of noise, there'll be hand-wringing, they'll look concerned, they'll be anxious, and then they'll do what they always do, which is vote with the government.
On the Prime Minister's language, why is it seemingly different now to what it was or what the Communications Minister's language was last week? Has the government now realised that getting this through the independents and the crossbenchers is more difficult than they first thought?
Look, you guys have both been around this building a lot longer than I have. You've witnessed many negotiations, many complex and difficult pieces of legislation. If a Prime Minister or a Minister goes in there and says, you know, I've got this idea and here's my bill and I don't really mean it, well, nothing will happen. So obviously we're going to go in there. Obviously you've got to say, well, this is our position and this is what we need. But as the Prime Minister has quite rightly said, if there are sensible propositions, not the overheated convective that we've seen over the last 72 hours, but if there are sensible propositions, then we'd be mugs not to listen to it.
And Tony Smith, just on some of the specifics.
Sure.
For example, the public interest advocate, one of the government's, well, one of the problems that people have is that the government appoints the advocate, but as the government has said last week, they appoint High Court judges as well. So what's the difference?
Well, as Malcolm Turnbull's made clear, this is unheard of in peacetime, about trying to regulate content of newspapers.
We're not
And-
trying to do
and-
that.
No, you are.
Say
We
they're
are not trying to do that at all.
regulate content.
Show me where in the act
Well,
it says we're going to regulate.
Well,
It
find someone.
doesn't go there at all.
Come on, Steve.
You are
So
tilting at
everyone here
Tilting
today,
at windmills.
everyone here today is making it up, are they? Every single media proproprietor is
I've got
making
to
it
be
up.
a bit suspicious. I've got to be a bit suspicious
It's a
when the
conspiracy.
CEO and the CEOs of some of the largest companies in the country are getting around complaining about things when the bill does two things. It says there's got to be a public interest test if there's further concentration of media in this country.
Come on.
And by the way, if somebody's aggrieved about something you've written in your newspaper, they've got a right of
If
redress.
this doesn't get through Stephen Jones, could that be a trigger for a leadership spill or more talk of the leadership?
The leadership stuff was resolved in February last year. If this doesn't get through, there'll be a lot of citizens out there who don't have a right of redress. If this doesn't get through, we could see further concentration of media ownership in this country without the public interest test being applied. That'd be the real
And you
disappointing
thoroughly
factor in
endorse
it.
the way Stephen Conroy's gone about this.
Look, I think,
think this is-
Stephen Conroy has taken the issues up. It's not as if this has just dropped out of the sky in a parachute. Finkelstein report almost 12 months ago. These issues were well and truly canvassed. We've taken up some of the propositions, but not all of it. Not all of the propositions in the Finkelstein report. This hasn't dropped out of the sky. People have been talking about these propositions for well over 12 months.
And just on the leadership question to you, Tony Smith, the Prime Minister told Fairfax today that she hasn't flinched yet. So why would she now? Do you give her credit for staying
Well,
power, sticking power?
Can I say this? It's not about the Prime Minister's flinchability. It's about the inability of the government and her leadership to govern competently or honestly. And we've seen that time
72,000
and
jobs.
time again. We've seen it time and time again. Now, it's true she didn't flinch when Stephen Conroy said, I've got this great idea. I'm going to ram this package without consultation through the Cabinet, through the party room and through the Parliament. She gave that a big tick. She didn't flinch when she looked the Australian people in the eye and betrayed them over the carbon tax. That's true, but the issue is about the government's lack of competence, lack of honesty and lack of capability.
Okay, well, I know you've got to get to question time in a minute, but I did want to ask you also about something that Christopher Pyne, the manager of opposition business, said this morning about asylum seekers arriving by boat. This is what he told Kieran Gilbert this morning on AM Agenda. Have a listen.
There's always a risk that we might not be able to completely stop the boats instantaneously, because there'll be some lag time between the time we change the laws and the time the message gets through. But I am very confident that over time, over the course of the next Parliament, the message will get to the people smugglers.
So over the course of the next Parliament, just last week Tony Abbott said we can make a substantial difference within a matter of weeks. Are they different messages there?
No. I mean, Tony Abbott made the obvious point that if we're elected, we'll be able to make a substantial difference in a short period of time. But he said that the problem wouldn't be solved completely overnight. Now, obviously, if there's a new government elected, a government comprising parties that have stopped the boats before will do what we did before. The Australian public know this is a very simple issue. They know that we've done it before and we can do it again, and they know that Labor will never stop the boats.
What Christopher Pyne has done there is admitted what Smithy here's not willing to admit, and that is that they've over-egged it. They've gone out there telling untruths, they've exaggerated it. They know they can't do what they're promised to do. Just as they know they can't deliver it on their budget numbers, they're going out there telling all of these sorts of furfies, and they're now starting to dig their fingers into the side of the desk thinking, hang on, we might just have to live up to some of these reckless promises that we've made, and that's the problem that you've got, and you know it. And people like Chris Pyne are out there thinking,
you know what the public knows? The public knows.
My God, we're going to get caught out on this if we ever win government.
The public knows. I mean, you've had
you're backstepping on.
They know that if we introduce the policies that worked before, they'll work again. They know you will never do that, and the boats will never stop as Labor's.
Every expert in the world says it won't work. Every expert in the world says it won't work.
Look, I know you guys.
At least you kept a straight face.
I've got to get to question time, so thanks very much for your insight.
We'll be in trouble with the whips
today. Thanks very much for joining us. I want